I've upgraded my Tab Ultra C from the stable 3.3.2 to the beta version 3.5. Boox has provided an array of new features alongside a series of bug fixes and optimizations. Rather than going through the update notes line by line, I'll spotlight items that stood out to me and assess their real-world utility. Kicking off with the notes updates, because notes, to me, feels like the heart of this device. The updates here are actually quite good. If you recall, the old AI bucket was dedicated to handwriting to text conversion. Boox has thrown in some fresh handwriting recognition features: shape perfection, strike through erase, and lasso recognition. Shape perfection is just that. You can hand draw basic shapes, hang on for a tick while touching the screen, and your handwriting morphs into a polished version as if you used the perfect shape tool to create it. It supports basic shapes like squares and rectangles, circles and ovals, and triangles. It can also register straight lines, which means my wonky hand-drawn lines are history, and semicircles. It works really well with all supported shapes, and the shapes can be drawn at any angle or orientation, with a small caveat that tiny drawings can be misread. For example, small triangles are often converted to ovals or straight lines, presumably because there's less area for it to make an ample calculation. Strikeout erasing is a feature that I've seen on other e-ink tablets, and I'm glad that it's now in the Boox ecosystem. It's straightforward but effective. You simply scribble across your notes and they vanish. It's an amazing quality of life feature since the stylus doesn't have a dedicated erase button, which forces you to either turn the stylus over or select the eraser tool. Lasso recognition is another new shortcut drawing gesture that offers a quicker way to select items with a smart lasso by simply encircling them with your pen brush. After you've drawn a circle around the objects you wish to select, the software will recognize the objects and auto-select them as it would with the smart lasso tool. If you intended to draw a circle around an object, a simple tap outside the area will bring your drawing back. It's another time-saving feature that I will keep permanently enabled. These handwriting recognition features can be toggled according to your preference, allowing you to mix and match to best fit your note-taking experience. Stepping outside the AI features, Boox has introduced a new variant of the lasso tool, the free lasso. The existing lasso tool, which has been renamed to Smart Lasso, seems to work the same and will detect objects inside your selection area. The free lasso tool allows more manual control over selections and will select the literal area that you've encircled without auto-snapping to the objects within, and it can even sever objects. Boox has introduced a new pencil brush texture. You can see here there are now two options to choose from. The first, which I presume was the original, is a more condensed particle brush. The new addition is a sparser texture that reminds me of a delicate pencil stroke and is a bit wider even at the same line thickness value. It feels like it would be excellent for light shading, but pressure sensitivity hasn't gone anywhere, so you can still press harder to get bold, dark strokes. The new texture simply requires more force to get there. Gesture control toggles have also been revamped, which is a win for both user interface and experience. The old ambiguous icons have been replaced with clearer physical toggles to make it easier to determine what is on versus off. They've also broadened the scope of gesture controls, granting us more nuanced control. Touch actions and gestures are now separated out into individual toggles. I've had my share of issues with unintended panning of notes or closing of models due to palm touches. While these new controls haven't fixed the underlying problems, they've certainly mitigated some of them. The ability to prevent canvas panning while still being able to pinch and zoom or tap on items is invaluable to me. In the previous iteration, the only option was to disable all canvas touch controls, meaning I'd be toggling back and forth after writing every other sentence, which would drive me absolutely mad. Boox is clearly focused on enhancing the quality of life aspects of their software. I truly appreciate their emphasis on improving overall usability and incorporating intuitive shortcuts. These are the types of features that I feel make a massive impact on whether I reach out for a specific device to complete a task. Undoubtedly, the crown jewel of the NeoReader updates is the ability to insert blank pages into PDFs. Within PDFs only, you can now effortlessly append a blank page at your current position. What makes this feature so appealing to me is its ability to streamline multitasking and exporting of notes from the device. When adding a new page, you can activate the double page view and position your reading material on one side and a blank page for your notes on the other. I was routinely using the split screen mode for this use case in the past, sticking the NeoReader app on the left pane and the Notes app to the right. With this method, the notepad is intrinsically tied to the PDF, but the individual note pages are not, which means you need to organize or label your notes for future reference and then export two documents separately. The convenience of this new NeoReader feature allows you to take notes alongside your PDF page and the same document, so your notes are always right behind the page you reference them from, and you can export the two entities as a single document. Of course, this also has downsides. There's no way to zoom in and out on this dual page view, and the screen is small enough to make it difficult to read small text when it's condensed to less than half the screen size. The split screen mode's upper hand is that you can maintain each app's zoom level and pan location separately. And, of course, not all of the Notes app features are available here in NeoReader. Whether this new addition can replace the split screen mode in my workflow is yet to be determined, but the utility of adding a new page is indisputable. NeoReader has also been enriched with some AI-driven features akin to the Notes app. Once you start using these quality of life features, I don't think you'll be able to go back to the old ways. It has borrowed the Shape Perfection tool from the Notes app to convert your hand-drawn shape to pixel-perfect versions, and it can convert your handwriting text into characters. To activate both, you simply draw or write out your notes and then double-tap them with your finger to convert. It has a few additional mark recognition features. You can underline a set of characters with a pen brush to create a highlight or underline style target of those characters, which prevents you from needing to take the longer route of having to tap, drag to select the text, and then apply the styles. This seems to also work if you strike through the text, which I don't like, as I prefer to strike out my own text with a single line stroke in various colors to indicate changes for myself. Circling characters will do the same thing, but allows you to perform quick targeting across multiple lines of text at once. Striking through PDF text with a scribble rather than a single line stroke will trigger a blackout area style to redact texts. They've also added strike-through erasing for your handwritten notes, similar to the Notes app, so a vertical scribble will erase the content that was scribbled on top of. All of these enhancements are undeniably aimed at refining the user experience, ensuring a more seamless document markup process, and they really do make the workflow feel much smoother once you've burned them into your brain. NeoReader's gesture controls and options also now resonate with that of the Notes app, mirroring the revamped UI and toggles. They've added one new gesture action area at the bottom of the screen to change pages, though its categorization under the AI bucket feels misplaced. Many features from the Notes updates also find a home here. The Smart Lasso tool now exists, along with the new fill color paint bucket and the dual pencil brush textures, which weaves a more unified Boox experience through their native ecosystem. The notorious first stroke bug has been a persistent thorn in the side of the Tab Ultra C. Of the 4 videos I've now made on the device, I've highlighted this issue in 3 of them. For context, the bug materializes when you sketch or write on the canvas for the first time or following any external action. The software simply doesn't render your pen stroke. Sometimes it might manifest the stroke after a second action, like initiating another stroke or pressing a button, but in the worst case, which happens quite frequently, it neglects to capture the stroke entirely, misplaces it, or only partially renders it. Unfortunately, the touted fix still doesn't render your stroke in real time as you draw it. Rather, your stroke pops into view a split second or so after it's drawn. Essentially, they've circumvented the need for users to execute a second action or refresh the screen for the stroke to be visible. It's admittedly an improvement over the previous functionality, but to be clear, it has not been fixed. It leans more towards a makeshift patch than a genuine fix, hinting at deeper, more systemic issues that they're yet to, or perhaps can't, address. That said, it's at least 50% less annoying than before, so we'll take it. Similarly, another bug with the marker brush existed where the first stroke would render in what seemed to be a diluted 50% opacity. This bug creates a zebra-like pattern within the stroke where only half the pixels are filled with color until a second action or screen refresh is executed. This bug still exists. Boox has taken a step forward by updating the Android OS security patches through to June 2023, covering a nearly 3-year lapse of security patches. I believe this update was made back in late 3.3 or early 3.4 beta build, and it's still in beta, which means it's not yet available to those who have not opted in. It's a good show of faith that the Boox dev team is potentially listening to their consumers' wants and are able to get out a build that works. However, it doesn't resolve my overarching security concerns on the device. One looming question is whether the kernel security has been maintained concurrently or if it has also been lapsed for years like the Android OS patches. I don't believe that this is something we as consumers can confirm directly on the device, so it'd be great if Boox could provide some transparency on this front. The heart of the dilemma, however, is more expansive. As we approach 2024, key elements of the device are either at the precipice of their end of life or rapidly nearing it. OpenSSL 1.1 has surpassed its end of life for support. Android 11 is anticipated to reach its end of life at the tail end of 2023, and the 4.19.157 Linux kernel isn't far behind, with its end of life looming with the onset of 2024. I also don't know that LTS builds get a lot of love in their final days. What this underscores is that the device's foundational components are on the cusp of becoming obsolete and will no longer have their security flaws patched. It looks as if the upcoming Tab 10C Pro model and potentially the Tab Ultra C Pro, which has not been confirmed, would be sporting Android 12. If true, I'm hoping those updates are backwards compatible with the Tab Ultra C and its generation of devices, as it would be ridiculous to have to buy a new device less than a year later just to lock in security updates. There exists a new high contrast button in the screen settings that can be turned on or off. It only works on balance mode and below, but it really does boost the colors quite a bit. Its impact mirrors the effect of the dark color enhancement slider on blacks, but across the available color spectrum. I've kept it persistently activated as I welcome the deeper, enriched colors. Ideally, they could convert this to a vibrancy slider akin to the dark color enhancement slider so that we could customize it on a per app or per experience basis. There have been several other additions and refinements. For instance, you can now utilize the fingerprint scanner inside Android apps, and there have been a bunch of UI and performance optimizations. And there's probably way more. We don't yet know when any of these beta builds will be released to the public as stable versions. Beta builds are also unpredictable and can introduce challenges that might not be rectifiable without subsequent patching. I'd suggest waiting for stable builds unless you're inclined toward feature testing or wish to provide constructive feedback to help further the Boox ecosystem. I also don't know that Boox has any guarantees if issues arrive or irrevocable damage is done to the device through these firmware updates, and I don't yet know whether you can revert back from a beta version. I'm verifying both those points with Onyx and will provide an update in the comments pinned below if they respond. Onyx has marked October 17th at 10 a.m. GMT+8 as their annual product launch event and will be hosting the live stream here on YouTube. I'm excited to see what they have on the horizon, as overall I've enjoyed using the Tab Ultra C. I'll put a link to the live stream in the description below so that you can save it if interested. And if you haven't already, you should check out my 6 favorite features of the Tab Ultra C in this video.